So as promised, I'm following up with part 2 regarding the underrepresentation of Black and Indigenous professors of psychology in Ontario. I'm going to start by sharing 3 kind of bullet points in terms of context, and then I'll get right into the substance of this milestone article. And just so you know, everything I'm going to share today, it's taken almost word for word from the article. So number 1, psychology professors and psychologists from diverse racial and cultural backgrounds, while they do tend to have a unique set of research interests that really enrich the field in ways that have historically been basically overlooked. For example, things like the impact of cultural identity on well-being, coping strategies of racialized communities who are facing racial trauma, and the influence of implicit bias on clinical practices, plus things like the effectiveness of community-based interventions. Number 2, the lack of racial diversity within professional psychology creates a barrier to care for clients of color when it comes to accessing services, since many are hesitant or reluctant to trust white psychologists who may hold implicit biases and may have been socialized to downplay the concerns of people of color, such as the trauma of racism. As a result, they may provide substandard care to patients of color, even inadvertently harm them if they've not engaged in personal anti-racism work. And the third thing I want to share in terms of context is that professional psychologists may make inappropriate and even harmful assessment, diagnostic, and treatment decisions depending on a patient's race. So next I'm going to talk about the methodology. How did these researchers conduct this study? Well, for each of the psychology departments, each professor's race was determined by 14 trained graduate student raters, usually pairs where it's one BIPOC person and one non-BIPOC person for each professor. But whenever there was a tie or there were ambiguous photos, these were also rated by 2 senior lab members of the research team, both Black women, who each independently provided a rating of the professor's race based on the professor's photo and the ethnic origin of their last name. And really, this methodology was quite similar to what was used by other Canadian researchers who were looking at faculty demographics. Now I'm going to get into the meat of it, a summary of the findings. Well, this study examined the racial demographics of psychology faculty members across 23 major universities in Ontario. There were 1,421. And of course, Ontario is the province with the largest number of universities in Canada. White psychologists were overwhelmingly overrepresented, 82% of them, or 1,244, compared to the BIPOC psychologists, 11%, or 168. In terms of racial groups, professors of East Asian heritage comprised the largest population, 5%, or 74 people, followed next by South Asian at 2%, 36 people. Then Middle Eastern, North African, 2%, or 32 people. And then Black, 0.6%, 9 people. Indigenous, 0.3, 5 people. I'm also going to note that the white faculty predominantly hold secure academic positions, so tenure-track positions or tenured, whereas the BIPOC faculty were concentrated in precarious roles, so lecturers, sessionals, and adjunct. Whenever we hear about these topics, there's usually a subtext or an unspoken question about the qualifications of the Black, Indigenous, or racialized people. Now, given the high qualifications required to become a professor, one question that does arise is if these BIPOC professors are as qualified as the white professors, and if these differences can explain the observed disparity. So to examine this in this particular sample, the authors conducted a detailed follow-up review of the publication records and the qualifications of the 8 Black psychology faculty. They didn't include the one emeritus person in the sample. That person is pretty much retired. So it turns out that several are registered psychologists and several hold senior academic ranks, such as associate or full professor, and several hold research chairs. Their publication records and their career accomplishments demonstrate that their qualifications match or exceed those of their peers. So, for instance, of the 3 Black professors at one urban university, one Black professor has published over 180 peer-reviewed articles. Another had published over 200 articles, and the third has published over 140 articles. Now, those at other universities do also maintain a robust research or teaching profiles that are closely aligned with their applied or their teaching roles. And really, this focused review confirms that the Black faculty in this sample are highly qualified, exceptionally productive, and in several cases, significantly outperform national norms. Frankly, this is consistent with employment research that overwhelmingly indicates that BIPOC professionals in Canada must be overqualified, not underqualified, to obtain the same opportunities as white professionals of equal status. Next, I'll talk briefly about the implications that were documented in this article. The authors note that this lack is contributing to mental health barriers in communities that may have no professional psychologists to serve them. And they offer 2 recommendations. The first is to prioritize hiring Black faculty. And the second recommendation, or the second recommended action, is to dramatically increase BIPOC admissions to psychology graduate programs. So there you have it. For the most part, what I've shared tracks very closely with the text of the article. I've offered very little editorial comment or opinion. I'm going to include the link to the article in the comments. Thanks for tuning in. Bye for now.